All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the People Person podcast presented by Good Time Media. Today, I'm lucky enough to welcome on Chris Castellani from Barstool Sports. Chris, how are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing all right, man. I've been in the house all day recording podcasts because it's snowing out. I'm not going out in this weather. So yeah, this is my third one that I've a third appearance I've banged out today. But I appreciate you having me on. I love doing it, man. Yeah.
Now, are you in Michigan right now? Because it just started snowing here, and I'm in Indiana.
Yeah, I'm in Michigan.
You're
Yeah.
in Michigan? Okay, yeah. It
Mhm.
literally just started snowing here. I'm like, damn, that sucks. I
Yeah, no, it's been bad lately for
I
around here.
hate the snow.
Me
To be,
too.
it's a bold opinion. Yeah, I feel like once you get the snow sucks once you have responsibilities. When you're a kid, it's awesome.
I think that's a fair way to put it. To me, it sucks post holidays. I can live with it
Yeah.
through Christmas and New Year's, and be like, okay, because you're with family, you're at home. But like when it gets to January and you're going through it and you know like this is going to continue, yeah, it's I'm with you. Right after that, it's not particularly fun. No.
Yeah. Now, so I really wanted to have you on because I've been following you obviously since you entered the Barstool world.
Mhm.
I didn't know much about you before then, but I think you have a really cool story and how you got where you are now. And I appreciate kind of your
Mhm.
perspective on life. So I kind of want to walk it back, get to know almost your origin story. So we
Yeah.
can start in like, let's say high school. Young Chris, you're sitting in high school, you're daydreaming about what your life's going to look like. What's that goal? What's that life look like to you, young
Well,
Chris?
it went back and forth because I love and have always loved entertaining people. I've loved creating content. I've always enjoyed making videos, and I've always enjoyed talking about sports. I think for the longest time, um, one of my big passions was I wanted to make movies. I wanted to either be an actor or a filmmaker, and that passion still exists. I think really right around high school, but even more so early college. I just it was pointed out to me multiple times, and it was unavoidable how passionate I was about sports, and I knew that um, there was a way to mix both of them. And I think that truly one of the big kind of game changers was, I think, sophomore year of college was I discovered Barstool, and I saw the way that they took content and took sports content and twisted it in a way that was it was more entertainment based than it was just kind of the talking heads that you see on other networks. I mean, it was personality based, it was content based, and I found that very appealing. Now at the time, and even for a long time after that, I never in a million years believed that like I was gonna end up there. But that kind of content has always been what I was going for. But I think even back in high school, I mean, I've been slowly churning out like some old high school broadcasting videos or
Yeah.
funny bits, stuff that I put together back in high school when I really started creating content.
Mhm.
But that was really kind of a big moment, like the broadcasting class that I was in, being like, okay, this is like it's these are connecting with people because you always when you never know how much it works, and so that was back. I mean, I had 500 followers or whatever on Twitter back in
Yeah.
high school, but it was really when you even if you connect with 12 people or a few dozen, it really makes a difference regarding how you view and create your own content because it allows you once you have some sort of built-in audience to feel like it can grow. And while it's not always healthy to check numbers on social media, I do think that there is something I remembered like the slow process of it rolling out and being like, okay, it's 500. Oh, well, okay, we're up to 1,000. And then like, you hit 10,000. All of a sudden you see the responses by people and the way it's rolling in. Like, I think that it's important um, to be able to check your content and check the way people are reacting to
Mhm.
your content. I think that I've done a good job of adjusting and making changes, listening to constructive criticism and kind of growing beyond that. But yeah, I mean, to bring it back around to your question, I think for the longest time, I knew since I was like three that at some point in my life I was going to be doing something that was either film or sports related. It was just about finding the angle, and ultimately, I found that angle here at Barstool.
Yeah. Now, I know it's at least for me, and I feel like a lot of people when they're in those high school years,
Yeah.
it's really hard to like cling to those, like that 12 people that is connecting with your
Yeah.
content. Cause like you're still trying to like, everyone wants to be cool in high school. And sometimes making the videos and doing that stuff, some people don't think that's the coolest thing in the world. I know that's my experience.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to cling to those few people who do enjoy it. And you appreciate those people so much, but it's so hard to just like keep doing it when the whole grand scheme of high school seems like the end of the world and you want to fit in, you want to be that cool guy, whatever. How'd you balance that? Was it hard to like keep doing it because you wanted to, obviously you have a passion for it, but it's,
Of course,
again, it's not the cool thing to do always.
Look, everyone's insecure in high school, even if they try, even if they try not to be, you know what I'm saying? And so I think everybody wants to be at some point, and there are exceptions. Everybody wants to be the quarterback. Everybody wants to be, Mr. Popular, Mr. Friendly, the voted best smile, that kind of guy. I mean, that was never me in high school. I think that growing up, and this was before a lot of the kind of the deep analysis, deep dive that I've done into my own mental health and stuff. But I knew that there was something that was always a little bit different. And it was so imperative that I found that lane. I was a tennis player. I was not really, an athlete. I was,
I didn't know you play tennis. That's sweet.
Oh,
I
was all state my senior year. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I play tennis in college right now. So.
Oh, right on, man.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Yeah. So I was a tennis player in high school, but it was when I think it's like this with, and I won't speak for everybody, but I think it's like this with multiple people who create content, and multiple people at Barstool, where sometimes it's hard to connect. And I think really what's been the biggest joy about these videos and the content, and the podcast I create, is like how many people I've met through them. That was the biggest surprise, and has been the biggest surprise from day one, has been, some of my best friends are people that I met through my videos, through my content. And when you're somebody who spent a lot of their life struggling with social interaction, struggling meeting people, to have that outlet is so important. And I think it's a good addiction to have, but I'm addicted to that high that comes with the responses. I'm addicted to making people laugh and smile and being passionate about stuff. I think that's really cool. And I think it's one of the things that at Barstool we get attached to. There's like Dave's done such an amazing job of hiring people who have a certain lane, a certain niche. I mean, like a prime example, like there's me, but there's like Stephen Shea, who's just this huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan.
Yeah.
And like I'm a Lions fan. I'm relatively indifferent towards the NFL, and I read all his blogs and I consume his content because the passion that he has for that team, it's really, really infectious. I mean, I think when I was interviewing, I think it was John Boy, he brought up a great point where it's like, regardless of what your passions are, you can find a video on YouTube of a guy who's got a stamp collection and you can watch it for like 10 minutes because people are attracted to personality. People are attracted to passion and being knowledgeable about a topic. And I enjoy and try to be that person that people, grow attached to as a content creator. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the big thing I've always like try to convince myself, or just even talking to other people, it's like, I feel like the content is you, the person. It's not whatever you're talking about, whatever you're trying to do. Like I want, at least my goal is for people to tune in to listen to something like this because they enjoy like me as a person and my personality. And hopefully that comes through and stuff like this, rather than what I'm talking about, or like, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I don't know everything. I don't know a lot of stuff. So it's just like, I'm going to let people in on my journey through all this. And I'm not going to pretend to know stuff that I don't know. And hopefully they tune in for me. And if they're not, they're just going to come in and out, watch video here and there, stumble upon stuff. But if they're actually invested in like what I'm doing, that's the coolest part to me. And like interacting with people, like you said, meeting cool people through the internet it's a very new thing. If you think about it in the grand scheme of the earth.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
for sure. Yeah.
Past 20 years, like 20 years ago, we could have never had this conversation. I probably never would have met you. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world. Like 100%. I'm able to have conversations like this. And that's a big thing, is like, I'm going to keep doing it because I enjoy it. And that's the big part of it. But I want to talk about walk us through the Barstool hire process. How did that happen? It was a crazy I'm sure a couple
Yeah.
days for you.
You know what's funny, man, is this I will never get tired of telling this story. I think I said this, and it's very rare that in the moment you realize how special something is. But I remember on that, I believe, man, I'm not sure. I think it was a weekday, I believe, when I got hired. But I remember that weekend saying, like, I could live to be 1,000 years old. I don't think I'm ever going to have a crazier, 24 hours. I mean, it happened so fast. The way it went is Spencer Turnbull threw a no-hitter for the Tigers in May. I could be wrong. I think it was May 19th. Date really doesn't matter, but just for context, I threw it out there. He throws a no-hitter. Now, what people forget is that was a West Coast game. So it started at 10. Oof. We're talking about a game that probably ended around 1. So after everything wrapped up, it was about 1:30 after I posted my video. And at the time, I was working for the Locked On Podcasting Network doing, Monday through Friday podcasts, about 20, 30 minutes each about the Tigers. So I probably, after doing the podcast and wrapping up everything, I probably got to bed that day or that night, probably around 3:30, probably around 3 o'clock. Oh. And I was working at the gas station still at Speedway in Lansing. And I woke up for a 8 o'clock shift. I really could have walked there. That's how close I lived, but I would drive. It's about a 2-3 minute drive. So I was able to wake up at 7:50 for an 8 o'clock shift. The snow wasn't a problem. It was May. So I could wake up pretty much right before my shift, roll out of bed and get there. And, I'd been creating content long enough to know that I knew that video and the reaction I had to Turnbull's no hitter was going to pop. I think around that time I had about 19,000 followers, I believe, on Twitter. So I post the video. I know it's going to do well. And I always enjoy waking up in the morning and seeing responses, especially when you have a West Coast game and you can't really stay up for that stuff. So I wake up and I got a DM and it's Dave, it's Dave Portnoy. And we immediately started talking and everything moved really fast. And I texted my family. I texted my mom and I texted, I think probably 2 or 3 other people. I think I texted my friend Anthony and I texted my friend Jenna and I told them, like, this might be a thing. Now, I didn't know how quickly it would happen, but it was around 10 a.m., I believe. I'd given Dave my contact information. He calls me and, like, I'm in the middle of a purchase. I'm handing people their cigarettes and coffee and shit. And it's Dave. And I pick up the phone. And for some reason, like, immediately, I probably hit it well over the phone, but I was just giggling. It was just such a bizarre thing that it was him, and it was definitely him. And that was there's multiple moments of that day that always stand out. And one of them was walking in that parking lot, because I was under the belief, like, this was going to be some negotiation. I'm going to have to talk about it. And immediately, Dave's presence, like, very much, he commands every room he's in. He commands every phone conversation that he's in. And immediately when he says to you, we like you, we're going to hire you, you just believe it. And he was very honest, and it made things. And then they sent us the contract, and my family and I read over the contract. And so probably by about 4 p.m., because that was an 8 to 1 shift. I was working for Barstool Sports, and that was it. And I've told this part too, but they're really, it's strange to me that it took a while for me to, like, appreciate it, let it grow, because the outpouring of messages you get is just insane. Like, and it's a good problem to have. It's crazy, but you're getting the bing, bing on your phone, like, all day, just getting that stuff. And so my parents were like over the moon, and I was too. I was processing it way differently, but we went out, we got a drink. And then finally, like, there were multiple stages of it, but I went home that night and I was still, like, so overwhelmed by the whole thing. But it was a friend of mine and we FaceTimed, and we'd done that multiple times over the previous several months. So it wasn't like a new thing, but we FaceTimed, and I just remember feeling a quaintness to that moment that, like, always stood out, that in that instant, like, all of a sudden one of the biggest people, like sports media personalities in the world, hired me and was tweeting about me. I was getting messages and responses by, so many Barstool people. And yet at the same time, I was, sitting in my parents' basement, talking with a friend, just like, like nothing had happened. Like it was just, and we were talking about it, but it was a very honest moment. I just remember in that moment thinking to myself, I hope I always maintain this feeling. Like my content will grow and I'll grow as a person. I look forward to doing that at Barstool, but I love that part of my story. I love the fact that like the guy who was working at the gas station who spent that night, I didn't go out and party. I didn't have some hot date. I sat and talked with a friend of mine for several hours about this earth-shattering, life-changing event. And that was always really rewarding to me. And I'll tell that story forever. And every person that did with that day or every text I got, like they're ingrained in my life, like for a huge part of my life forever. And I love that. That was such a rewarding moment that day for sure.
Now in that, or like just looking back on that moment, do you think of it as something like, wow, this amazing like opportunity I never thought would happen? Or is it like, I've earned this, like I put in the work, I did my due, I paid my dues, like I earned this? Because like I don't think it's a arrogant thing to say. I think it's like you clearly put in the work and you kind of earned that position from my perspective.
I appreciate that. I would agree. There was never a moment where I felt like I was untalented, and I doubt myself all the time, but there was I feel like this is earned. When the dust settles, there is a scary element where it's like, all right, well, now you can't go out and fail. You can't fuck up. Like you got to go out there and you got to make good content. And I think the people at Barstool have been so receptive, and they've done an excellent job of kind of slowly allowing me to be a part of content and podcasts. And, I was on the Rundown. I went to HQ, and obviously, Dave had me on the New Year's Eve live stream. So, I mean, they've done a great job with that. But I think and I said this in the video I posted after I got the job, was that the best part of it was not like the videos and the content, because that stuff honestly comes very easy to me. I could talk Tigers baseball like until I'm blue in the face. Like and the fact that I only have 2 minutes and 20 seconds a night to do it is like, I mean, that's chump change. I can do that very easily. And I love talking about movies, and I love talking about University of Michigan sports. And I could even talk about the Lions or Michigan State if I wanted to, and have in the past. It was the journey I'd taken mentally that I was proudest of. Because I think that if people have been following me for a long time, I did not expect this to happen. But I got messages from people saying, we've watched you grow up. And that's the most rewarding part to me, is that you began the journey as the guy, you talk about Tigers and you're ranting about the Tigers, and that changes, and you grow as a person. Perspective, becomes a part of your life. And I think really a big thing, there was a noticeable shift in my content post. I mean, we're not out of it, but post the heart of COVID, from like beginning in March of 2020, where when sports get canceled, perspective changes. For one, you realize how grateful you are and how much you took them for granted that they were there in the first place. But really, when stuff losing, and I'll always be passionate about sports and always be one of the biggest things in my life, but the life or death nature that you may have had about it changes when people are losing their jobs and people are staying at home, and sport like that really does impact how you feel about yourself and how you feel about other people, and the way that you take in information and talk about athletes and talk about coaches. So I think that was the most rewarding part, was the mental journey. And I think I told Eddie this on Dog Walk Radio, but I in December of 2020, I was off Twitter for about 3 months, and there were a lot of discussions. And I even flat out told my parents, like, I'm ready to move on from this. Like, I'm done. Like, I just can't. Yeah. And so much of it was mental health related. And that's stuff I'm still dealing with. I mean, I think one of the misconceptions about having a job that's as awesome as Barstool is like, you don't get a job and then you wake up one day and like your afflictions are just cured, like I don't,
Exactly.
I didn't stop having depression after I got Barstool, I mean, that stuff still exists, just in a different form. But the fact that I came back to social media and then 2 months later, I'm getting the job with Barstool, as cliche as it sounds, I've become living proof that never giving up is an actual thing. And I think that's dope. Like that's a lesson to teach people. Cause I was so like, I really hit that fork in the road and was about to go a few different directions. And I like kept moving forward and ended up here. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things I'm proudest of.
Yeah. Now you said something, I rewatched that video of after you got hired, like just right before this. And I wrote something down because I was like, wow, I didn't catch this the first time. That's an incredible, just like powerful statement. You said, happiness is not something you strive for. It's something you deserve. And I think that's a great, I love that. And I think in a situation like this with content and entertainment, it's people like you and me. It's so easy if you have these big goals and dreams to just think like, oh, once I do that, then I'll be happy. I don't have to worry about it now. Like, oh, I'll achieve this. And then all the happiness will just come to me. Like you said, like it doesn't cure anything by just like achieving what you worked hard for. Like you need to find that journey through the journey, enjoy that, find happiness through that. I think that's a really important thing for people to realize. So you talked a little bit about, but just like, how have you kind of worked on that? Obviously like the mental health side of everything, like that's almost separate from your Barstool life. That's something.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be open about it, but I am, but there are a lot of things I keep in. I'm a big believer and I don't want my problems to be other people's problems, so I am fortunate enough and lucky enough to be able to have outlets where I can, for my healthily, deal with my mental health and deal with, stuff that's going on. And what keeps me going in terms of like, just, I'm in therapy multiple times a week. I journal. It's still a struggle, man. I mean, it really is. And there's the fact is like when you create content and it's like this, it's like those, there's those Instagram couples and then they'll break up and people will be all surprised. Well, the fact is, what you see is the best of them. Like, I love and adore my following and my followers, and I love meeting people in person. But in general, there's probably about 5 people in the world who know like actually what's going on in my, like in general, what people see. And this is a conscious decision on my part, is the best of my content and the best of my creative capabilities. And I love doing that. I love putting my best foot forward and creating content and making people laugh and entertaining people. But I think that what you have to, one of the important parts, especially now that the following has grown, is good support system. And that was one thing. I wasn't nervous about it, but anytime you start a new job, you wonder about this. And the way that the people at Barstool have been so honest with their reception of me and even the criticism at points, so that everyone there has been incredibly kind. That makes such a huge difference when you work at a place, regardless of where you work, whether you're flipping burgers or you're making a big budget Hollywood film, to have a support system and a group around you that you feel comfortable opening up to. That's huge. And I've talked about stuff since I've been working at Barstool that I never expected I would talk about. That's made me laugh. I've hung out with people I never thought I would hang out with. But I guess what excites me is knowing that I'm at a point now where the platform can make a difference. Like I've told you that this story right now about how I got hired, and I've told people many stories about, being in therapy and grinding and waking up and that kind of daily struggle. But I look forward to the next step. I look forward to the next story that I'm going to tell, because that stuff, it really does matter. I remember my last podcast that I did for Locked On Tigers. I talked a lot about, the really bad struggle that I've had and continue to have had with OCD. And I got a message from somebody who said, like, I pulled over while listening to that podcast, and I related so much to that story. And now I'm like, I'm going to get help for, my compulsions. And it's like that stuff. That's amazing, because I love sports and I love talking about the Tigers and I love movies and that stuff. But I think if the best thing I do with my platform is just talk about Tigers games. I know I can be more, and maybe that'll be what I'm known for, but I know that there's something greater there. And I look forward to telling that next part of the story. And even on those days where I'm like just completely feeling like shit. And there's a lot of days like that, man. I just know this is going to make for such an awesome event when I come out of this. Like there's never been, I think the one important thing now, I've reached this point where there's no longer the world is ending vibe. It feels like it's ending, but there's still tomorrow. I mean, I think that's such an important thing to just drag yourself through the mud and be like, all right, well, you can get there tomorrow. Let's get to tomorrow. Let's fight to tomorrow and see what happens. And often tomorrow is better. The sun will come up and you're going to still have to fight and your afflictions aren't going to go away. But I think to constantly have that hope in the back of your head is something it's saved my life and it's something that kept me going. It's one of the reasons why I find myself here at Barstool. And I love that that's become a part of my story, is that grind, that, fighting to be better. I think that's something people have connected with. And I'm very proud that I've connected with people in that way.
As you should be. And I think, kind of like I said earlier, people are starting now more than ever probably to tune into you, for Chris. Yeah. Not because, they're a huge Tigers fan. They just want to see what you have to say about, you can talk about anything. People are going to tune in because, like, I want to see what Chris has to say today. And I think that's a really powerful and special place to be.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think that you look at what we do at Barstool, there's a huge reason for that. I mean, look at what Dave does. I mean, Dave talks sports. I've heard Dave talk about pop culture. He's interviewed celebrities. He reviews pizza he does these pizza reviews. They're huge. They're phenomenal. Like they have a massive impact on like that industry. And he talks about the stock market and people, I've had people say to me like, I'm not even into the stock market, but I watch Dave's stuff. And that as a content creator, that's rewarding to me when I've had people be like, dude, I don't even watch the Tigers, but I watch your videos just to consume the content. Like that. That's the number one sign to me that you're doing something well and that your audience is beyond just a niche audience. When, I mean, to know that there's people tuning in for you, to see you, that's irreplaceable, man. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, has there been anyone at Barstool? It's a big world you step into. Is there anyone that kind of you had expectations of what they would be like in real life, and then you met them and it was completely different?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I think I've gotten a slightly different side of Dave than other people have. I believe that I think what makes Dave special as a boss and as a creator of content is he's very similar to a coach. I mean, I being in Michigan, one guy that people talk about all the time, and rightfully so, is like Tom Izzo, right? Who's this, legendary coach at Michigan State. And every few years he gets, shit for aggressively yelling at a player, or he'll grab a player's jersey. And the fact is, what makes him special is the fact that he knows he can talk to that player that way. But there's other players somewhere else on the bench who might not respond to that kind of criticism. I think that one thing I've noticed about Dave that has made me like grow a greater appreciation and respect for is that we live in a world of complete phoniness. Like people, like, I mean, I just brought it up. Like there's these people, and I'm guilty of it. I have been in the past, of people who, portray a certain version of themselves or try to be something they're not. Dave has many things. I've never known Dave to lie to me or to anybody that I work with. And I think it's one of the reasons why like people have responded to him, and people have responded, to Barstool the way that they have. I would say that, pretty much everybody has been super kind. There was nobody that I had like a certain like notion about who was that different, but I will say like, recently, a couple of weeks ago, the Barstool Bench Mob guys were in Ann Arbor. It was Marty Mush and Rico Bosco, and Jake Marsh was there. And like three guys that, in my opinion, have like pretty different personalities from each other. And yet they're all, when you see them in public, there's not, I'm sure there are, and I just haven't seen them, but in my experiences, I don't see many egos. Like there's people, like most people that Barstool hires and has hired are people like me. They're grinders. They're people, a lot of them are like Midwest people who just love sports or are passionate about golf or about basketball or about, NFL football. And they go out there and they work. And I think that's why, as a company, Barstool's worked as well as it has. So no, I mean, they've all been very receptive. They've all been very kind. It's been enjoyable to see the way they work. And I guess the last part I'll say is having been around the college football show, when that was, when they were rolling with that, is like, one thing you really do realize is just how hard, not just the content creators work, but the behind the scenes people just work so hard and just to get that production going. And, these are people that are not in front of the camera all the time. They're not content creators, but like, that's a full operation, that they have to run. And, it's amazing the way that the company has grown since I started following them, and to see the full on production that they have now. I mean, I've worked in broadcasting even before Barstool, and it's a well-oiled machine, the way these productions go about. So it's very fun to watch.
Yeah. I think you can have a greater appreciation for production when when you've gone through it and done it all yourself. Like when you're a one-man show and you like got to do the editing, got to film this, got to do lighting, all this stuff. And then you see a giant production, like, even if it's like a concert or just any kind of live event. And then like, I just know since I've been doing this, I look around, I'm like, dang, there's a lot of people behind the scenes making this happen that don't get the appreciation, don't get the love they deserve. But this doesn't happen without them. And like most people who just go there as a fan or enjoy the experience may not appreciate that. So it's always interesting to look at production from that end.
For sure. And especially like there's been a lot of holy shit moments since I started working at Barstool, but the college football show, man, like you just see like the crowds that come out, it's just crazy. I mean, it is seriously insane, and it's fun to watch. And like, I mean, I won't speak for anybody, but like I guarantee you, we feed off of that. Like the show is better when the crowds are better. Like it really is that there's an added element to it. And I mean, it's so rewarding to even just to be a small percentage of creation there, to know that people are responding to a company you work for, wearing the merch and going out and supporting your boss and supporting your company. It's insanely humbling.
Yeah. Now I just have a few kind of miscellaneous questions I want to get to before we wrap up here. One thing, this is an argument I've had with my buddy. He plays junior college baseball, big MLB guy. I'm not as big in the MLB as I should. I'm a huge Cubs fan, but I was there when I was at Wrigley Field when Baez, Rizzo, Bryant, like all got traded. That was the worst.
Oh, really?
I was literally in the stadium. It was the last game they played. I was like, this is the worst day of my life. But anyways, I've always had sorry, you go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead. I didn't have anything.
I was just going to say, I've had this argument. I think there should be a steroid league in baseball where you just let people take as many steroids as possible and see how far a human being can hit a ball. Do you have any thoughts on that? I think it would be awesome.
I mean, it would be a neat niche. The fact is, honestly, and this goes overlooked, that league existed in the 90s. I mean, because that's the thing is, like, okay, it's a famous story now, but there was the lockout in 94, or the strike in 94, and then baseball was struggling with popularity. And while, Bud Selig as the commissioner never encouraged people to take steroids. McGuire and Sosa, their heads grew 4 sizes, and then they were smacking 70 home runs a year. And it was within the realm of baseball, maybe not externally, but within the confines of Major League Baseball. Everybody knew these guys were juicing. Like,
imagine if they didn't have to hide it from like the public or anyone.
Right.
And then people would work to make steroids better. There'd be companies out there to try to make the best steroid. Like, I think that's like arena football for that'll be the next step. Is it would have to be some independent league. I think that's an apt comparison, because like arena football is football for people who hate defense. Yeah.
Steroid baseball would be baseball for people that hate clean baseball. I mean, it'd be a neat niche, for sure. I mean, I think that they've done a much better job of cracking down on stuff lately, but that would be. I mean, that's fine. And I remember there was an argument back when I was working at a local sports radio station. One of the hosts had where he basically just said, like, why don't we just let them cheat?
Yeah.
Well, I disagree with that completely. Like, there was an element to his argument where because his whole thing was like the game was more fun when people were cheating. Like, well, yes, I mean, it was all based on a lie. I mean, you could say that the Astros were more fun when they cheated, but it doesn't, it doesn't negate what happened. But no, that's funny though, that your idea is the whole league. I guess I think
it'd be sweet. I think like, and then just see if it works out. Maybe the MLB will be like, you know what, screw it, let's legalize it. So just idea. Maybe if I get crazy freaking rich down the road, I'll make that league happen. So
Barstool will have to sponsor it at some point.
Yeah.
That'll be our next venture. Yeah.
Now, last question for you. I'm going to steal it from your coworkers, Jeff and Kenjack. They asked this on LCB. 6 movies. I think it's 6. They do 6. Can just 6 movies. Doesn't have to be favorites. Whatever you've seen recently, what you want to watch. 6 movies.
I would say, okay, just going down the line, I would say The Dark Knight, Whiplash, The Shawshank Redemption. I'll throw The Wolf of Wall Street in there probably. How many we have? We had 5 there.
4, I think. Dark
Is that
Knight,
4?
Wolf of
Dark
Wall
Knight,
Street,
Shawshank, Whiplash, Wolf of Wall Street. I would say another one I've loved is American Psycho, Christian Bale. Great movie. Very, very dark comedy. But Christian Bale in that movie, that's probably my favorite performance in any film. And then that last one, man, there's so many. There's actually a very underrated movie that no one's ever heard of, but I always talk about it because it features an actor that everyone hates. It's a movie called Shattered Glass about a journalist who was, it's a true story, but I won't give it away, who was accused of fabricating a lot of his nonfiction stories. He wrote for the New Republic at the time. And it's a famous movie because it stars Hayden Christensen, who was Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars prequels. And it was made in between episodes 2 and 3. And a lot of people, I'm not one of those people, but a lot of people just thought that guy was like the worst actor ever. I blame more so the writing, but it's a excellent journalism movie, and he's great in it. So it's always my go-to movie when people are like, that guy can't act. I'm like, no, people, you should totally watch this. And so it's a very watchable film. If you like journalism movies and you like, mysteries, one of my favorites. So I would probably put that in there. There's a lot. I mean, there's so many like honorable mentions in there that I can throw. I mean, both the West Side Stories, the original and the remake, Fight Club, I'd throw out there. The Social, oh man,
Social Network.
It's hard for me to leave Social Network off any list because I've watched that movie more than almost any movie. Yeah, I mean, but I'll stick with those 6 because I just feel like I can watch them pretty much any day. Yeah,
love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for taking the time, Chris. I really appreciate it. It was nice to meet you. I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah, dream girl, dreaming. I be dreaming. Missing all the days you got me feeling. I said I love you, baby. No, I mean it. Hey, yeah, dream girl, I be dreaming.